Good afternoon. So last night it rained pretty much the entire night and into today quite a ways. So everything's really wet and sloppy out here, but last night I was able to get a couple of the connections done in the panel back there, and we were able to get it backfilled. So let me show you what we got done yesterday when the light was failing. So I have a rough backfill done across to the panel there. We have our wire ready to go through the wall and then up into the panel. Over here I'll have to pull the cover off, but we got the wires run into the panel. I have the breaker installed, but I don't have my neutral or my ground hooked up yet. So that's going to be tonight's project. As I was finishing up, it was just pouring rain, and apparently it didn't dry at all today. I did look it up. I think the rule of thumb is to put your big loads towards your main breaker, but at the same time these panels are rated for any load anywhere, and if I'd put this breaker up to the top, it would have been really hard to hook any wires up where the big thick 4-aught wires have to run. So yeah, we put it at the bottom. I think it'll be just fine. So the first thing I'm going to do tonight is to get the wires run through the wall here. What I'm going to do is just unwrap these so that they're all individual strands again. And I'll shove them through the wall individually. That way I can wrestle them. I'm trying to get this wire to do a 90-degree corner. It's very, very challenging. You don't have a lot of room here. So we'll do that after we get the box installed on the other side of the wall. That is the corresponding box just rotated the other way, so we can run the wire up the wall to our meter panel, which will be on the other side there. Okay, it's a little tight back here. Trying to get you in here and me is a little challenging, but we made it work. So this box goes on this side here. So we'll have to widen out the hole in the board, and we can glue this in place. I think we got it. That'll work. Let's glue this up, this connection up here, and then we'll be good to install the box, and then we can run our wires through. So now we have our upright glued in with our coupler on here. Next step is to do the knockout on the bottom of the box here. And we can just set the box right on top and then screw it to the wall. I think that's the right knockout. I might have to go one bigger, but you never want to oversize your knockouts, because that's not the code and it's a pain to fix. Okay, let's see if it fits. There we go. Okay, we're going to get the nut on before I get this box tight to the wall, just in case I can't spin it, because it'll hit the back of the box here. Okay, now it's time to get the wires in through from the outside and then up into the box. It's going to be a wrestling match. So I forgot to hit record on the first one here, but I just shoved it through. I think it'll be easiest to just pull that last little slack out of here. So let's do the other 3 wires. I'm going to pull those through from the other side, and then we'll try to get these 2. That worked just fine. We're going to do the ground last, because that's a narrower wire. Okay, I'm going to pull those 2 wires in, and then hopefully we're done on the outside here, and we can put this box cover on. Okay, that worked out really well. Better than I was thinking it was going to. So let's get the cover screwed on, and then we're done out here. Okay, let's get the wires up into our panel now. Okay, that was a fight. I'm going to put this cover on down here, and then what we'll do is we'll start terminating our connections up into the main breaker here. Okay, because our wire had 3 4-aught wires, so one's for line 1, one's for line 2, and one's for our neutral, I need to figure out which one is which. I already have my 2 hots, so line 1 and line 2, hooked into the breaker and ready to go. I have my neutral just sitting there loose, not cut to length, not attached to anything, so it's basically insulated and isolated. So what I did is I took an extension cord, clamped the wire to the end of the extension cord, and then I'm going to use a multimeter to figure out which one of these wires here is the neutral wire that basically completes the circuit. Or I'm going to ohm it out, so I'm going to see how much resistance it has. And when the resistance goes to basically nothing, that means that I've found the wire that I'll then mark as my neutral here and the neutral there with some white tape. Then we'll hook that up to our neutral bar. I don't know of a better way to do this. The one side of my wire I bought it cut to length. The one side was taped with a green electrical tape, but the other end didn't have any wires with green electrical tape, so I think you would have had to do this anyway. It would have been a lot easier to do it on the roll, but I was kind of rushed yesterday. Okay, so right now I have an open circuit, so my ohm meter is an overload, which means like infinite resistance. If I touch them together, it tones, and that means that there's continuity between my 2 prongs of my multimeter. So now what we're going to do is hook one end into our jumper, which is our extension cord. So we'll just stick that right in to one of the blades. That holds it pretty nicely. And just to test that I've got a circuit at least in this cord. I'm going to test it. Okay. So I have my probe in the other side, and the only reason this is working right now is because I used a vice grip and clamped my 4-aught wire between the 2 blades of the extension cord, basically connecting those 2 circuits. That way I know that I have a good test lead. So let's see if I get lucky with the first one here. Nope. So it's not this one. This is one of the hots. Okay, second one here. Nope. Means it has to be this one. Cool. It's actually the one that had that green electrical tape on it. So when I touch it, I get continuity. So this is my neutral. It's nice that it already has the green electrical tape. I will change that to some white and I'll tape it up in a spot where I can see where I'm. So I'm going to cut all the slack off. I'll tape it up in a spot where it'll remain on the wire. And we'll probably get that one hooked up first so that I don't mistake anything. And yeah, we'll go from there. So we have the main panel outside. That one has its own ground rods driven into the ground. And our ground and neutral are basically bonded together. I don't know exactly, well, that's normal. So you normally, if you have one panel in your house, you can basically either put your ground or neutral on either one of those two bus bars because they're basically in a continuous circuit, bound together with the ground and the neutral attached to it. But when you have a sub panel, which is a panel that is being fed off another panel, you can't bond the neutral and ground together. They have to have their separate circuits. So I've ordered a bus bar, which is where you attach all your wires to. I've ordered an extra one of those because this panel is kind of strange where I can't break the bond between these two bus bars. So I'll have to install another bus bar in the panel that is my ground bus bar. My ground wire will attach directly to that. It won't actually attach to any of the existing lugs in the panel here. It's kind of strange that way. So if that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry. It took me years of doing this for my family and countless YouTube videos and all that, watching to kind of wrap my mind around it. So anyhow, yeah, that's what we're doing. If I haven't already mentioned it, you can mount your panels upside down. So normally you see the main breaker on the top of a panel, but it doesn't matter. To code, you can go up, down, sideways. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. They actually stamp line, which is the side that you're supposed to feed your panel from, upside down and right side up. So they're intending it to be used like this too. But this shortened my wire run, so I didn't have to bring my conduit up and around or run my wires through the panel up to the top and then back down. It makes for a nice, easy installation. So yeah, let's get these wires cut to length and terminated. But I need to grab some white electrical tape first. Okay, I couldn't find any white electrical tape, but I have some white Gorilla tape, which is probably even better. So we'll use some of that. Oh, except for it's the end of the roll. That's a bummer. Well, I'll do that later. I think to code you have to mark it as a neutral, even though it's black. But I could be mistaken. So what we're going to do is give ourselves not that much slack, because if you do, it's going to be a pain to get them in. So we're going to go about right there. This is the stressful part, because if you cut them too short, I think you can splice them, but it's not something you want to have to do. So I have a pair of cable cutters, which are meant for soft wires like this aluminum wire, and they work, but this is definitely the maximum size you'd want to do with them. You have to take quite a few nibbles at different angles. Okay, we're going to strip off about 1.25 inches or so of this insulation. Hi Luna, how are you? How are you? Really tight back here. Okay. Thanks for saying hi. Luna will just come and check on me when I'm working outside if she's outside too. It's kind of funny. Okay, when you're using aluminum wire, you need to use some of this. It's an anti-corrosive agent that you put over the bare wire here, and it basically just prevents oxidation or whatever from getting in and ruining your connection, causing issues with conductivity, I should say. I've heard people just dipping the ends in. I'm just going to smear it around. It's basically grease. Okay. You want to make sure those are good and tight so you get a good connection. Okay, for the hots here, there are two 4-aught wires, one here and one here. They are basically 120 volts, but they're basically completely out of phase with each other. So when one's at the peak of, just say like positive 120 volts, the other one's at negative 120 volts, which you take that whole potential, that's 240 volts of potential. That's how you get a split phase panel. So basically it doesn't matter which side is which when you hook it up. I'm sure, like if I were planning on doing all this, I'd try to keep it all L1 on one side, L2 on the other, but this should be just fine. I don't think I'll have any concerns with it. So yeah, so I'm going to cut these to length and we'll get these installed. The battery died right as I was getting the last of the hot lines hooked up. But now that they're hooked up, I have to put these covers over them. These protect you from touching these lugs when it's energized. So you just, it looks like you just clip them on, slide it up here, and they clip on like that. So pretty simple. Looks like they're made out of rubber. So yeah, this panel is pretty much ready. The only thing that needs to happen yet is the grounding situation has to be figured out. I'm going to put this cover back on now that we're finished fighting with the big wires, and we will go outside and finish up those connections out there. Okay, we're back outside here. This is what I did to basically make a connection all the way over back there to test the continuity. Just a vice grip clamped on that wire. You'll see here the ground is marked with yellow, and our two hots are already hooked up to the breaker, ready to go there. We need to hook the neutral up to one of these lugs here, probably do the bottom one if we can, and then the ground gets hooked to this lug back here, and that just screws in to the bus bar. So we'll basically cut this to length and then we'll attach it back to the bus bar. Okay, I'm going to cut it a little bit long because it's hard to figure out my exact length. I like having my boxes tidy. I thought I had to have extra wire to reach any breaker within the box, but I don't. So I'm actually probably going to reset the wire for this first circuit we have here, just so it's nice and clean. Basically comes in the box and it's right angles all the way up into the breaker. So, but yeah, let's get this one done first. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get this wire up into this lug here. It is another potential ground source. Then I don't have to use this giant awkward lug that's back here behind the breaker. This would be a much cleaner look if I can get that to work. Sweet. So now I just need to cut my ground to the right length for that. There we go. So I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but this is humming now, which means that we are drawing power. Yeah, we are hooked up and we are basically set up to run power to the shop. We have our 200 amp breaker down there. That's all wired up. It's in the conduit all the way on the ground. Ignore my temporary shore power hookup. It goes all the way over here. We have it run through the building, and there is a breaker panel right on the other side of that. But because it is a sub panel, we need to run a separate ground from the panel down out. And then we have 2 grounding rods right there that we need to pound into the ground right next to the building here. And that will finish up the panel install, then we can start running circuits off that. For these ground rods, what we're going to be doing is putting them as close to the building as we can. We are going to be having exterior insulation on the outside of this wall. On top of the insulation, we will have furring strips, which will stick out another 3/4 of an inch. And then we'll have our steel. So this whole area underneath here will be basically sheltered from the elements, and you won't be able to like mow up there or anything like that. So it's a great spot to put those grounding rods. I'm going to try to drive them in so that they are below surface level, and we'll dig in a trench for the wire and all that. That way we can't hit them, or when we're weed eating we'll end up catching them or something like that. I like to have them below ground level. For the inspection purposes, we'll probably leave it unburied until I get final inspection on that panel. But yeah, we'll have to put 2 ground rods in, that's to code, and they have to be separated, I believe, 5 feet, but we'll go 6 or so, just so that we have enough separation between them for sure. So we'll drill a hole through the tongue and groove, 2x6 about right here. We'll put that wire through, and I'll just put a dab of silicone in here. But like I said, this is going to be all inside the insulation of the wall. I don't know if that's technically per code, but I'm just treating it like I'm running my conduit up in the wall, so you won't be able to access this box at all. But I think that'll be okay. Worst comes to worst, you could always pull the steel off. It'd be 1 sheet of steel to get to this if you needed to. So I apologize, I forgot to hit record when I was pounding in my ground rods. I have one done all the way pounded in, and one almost finished. So I had to move out from the building a little bit because I think there's a footing through here. But there's 1 ground rod pounded in right there, and this one just has a couple feet to go. Then we'll be done with the pounding part. Okay, that'll work. So this is number 6 bare copper grounding wire. We just have to connect both of the grounding rods with it, and the rest goes into the panel. So to connect them, we're using a grounding rod clamp. Okay, next we're going to take our wire, we're going to put a bend in it. And I'm going to have the wire enter from the bottom. That way it's less likely to get caught on shovel or weed eater. I think it's just a little bit better practice, I guess. Okay. Okay, I'm going to drill my hole through the wall here. That way I can feed my wire up through and get it inside the building. I don't know if this is to code or not. I think it is. I've seen it done plenty of times. But yeah, check with all your local building codes, electrical codes, and all that before you do any wiring of your own. If you even can in your county or state. So because this grounding clamp, you have to pass the wire through, and I have to bond both of the grounding rods to the same wire. I have to stick this wire through, and then I'll feed it into the building. Okay, I'm gonna put this little dab of silicone to fill in that hole, just so we don't have creatures crawling in it, I guess. Okay, now that we have the exterior grounding all installed, let's go inside and do the grounding in the panel. We got our copper grounding wire run through the wall. What we're gonna do is put a cable clamp that goes into the box here. We'll get that set up, and then we'll run our wire up into the box, and then we can cut it to length. So I already knocked the little knockout out, and it's fairly simple to get these installed. You definitely want to use them so that you don't have wires loose that are rubbing. It's definitely a code violation to not use these little knockouts for the clamps. I just like using a screwdriver to tighten it up, that nut. It's a fairly easy way to get it tight without hurting yourself. Okay, now that we have the wire run mostly through, I'm going to get it nice and straight and tucked in against the edge or against the wall, and we're going to put some staples in it. So now that we have that stapled off, we're going to tighten up our clamp here. Okay, I'm pretty sure I can't have that much wire sticking out past my bus bar here, so I'm going to go and get a snips and we'll cut that off. Okay, last step here is to get our ground set up from our other panel. I'm tempted to use this instead of this 2-aught connector here, mainly because the wire has to come in sideways into this bus bar, and this it comes in up or down or vertically. So I think I'm gonna do that. Seems like a better option. Okay, we have the ground connection from the main panel ready to go in. We'll just get it coated up with the anti-corrosion grease stuff. So bear in mind, I don't know if this is all the code, but I'm going to show you our panel here, and yeah, I think we're ready to hook up circuits to it. So we have our mains coming in, 2 hots, 1 neutral, ground comes up to here, 2 ground bars. The ground that we installed this morning comes in here, ties in here. Then we have a loop that bonds both these ground bars together. That's also bonded to the back of the box. I think that's all that's required. I don't know for sure though, so take all of what I'm showing you with a huge grain of salt and do your own research. So I think I'm going to split the video up right here. I'm going to continue doing electrical this morning and then try to get most of the shop wired up today. I think this is a good stopping point for showing the installation of the whole sub panel and getting the wiring all over here and brought into the box and basically made a ready box ready to accept circuits. So I want to thank you all for watching to this point in the video. If you haven't already, it wouldn't hurt to hit that like button if you enjoyed this content. That tells YouTube that this content's worth sharing to other people. So if you like this content quite a bit and want to see more of it, then the best way to do that is to just hit that subscribe button, and that way you can follow along with all of our adventures. So if you want to support the channel in a more direct way, the best way to do that is through our YouTube channel memberships. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later.